Now, everyone's making it in film and TV, but we don't really know how. Here, we uncover the truth. Welcome to the Your Cinema podcast. Welcome to the Your Cinema podcast today. This is the place where we explore the truth about the film and TV industry, and we hear it directly from those who are smashing it in their areas. Today is extremely special. Like, we always have special guests, but I'm super excited today because I believe we've got a mastermind and a genius here today. And I don't say it or take it lightly. I would say he's a great creative director, but he's also like an esteemed and critically acclaimed director, writer, dare I say pioneer, for the work he's completed. I'm not gassing, I am speaking the truth. I introduce to you Abdou Cisse. What's going on, bro? How are ya?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Tired. It's been a very long, not a long year, but a
Hmm.
very jam-packed year. So yeah, it feels good. It feels good to finally have things coming out and finally out as well. So yeah, man, I feel good. I
I
feel good.
love
It's
that.
good.
I love that. And do you know what? It's definitely been a jam-packed year. I guess I'm saying that from the side of watching your output and some of
Mm.
the things that we can deduce from what's going on your socials and that. But one of the things that just so excited me was your recent release of Festival of Slaps.
Woo.
Because that, like, pun intended, it slapped. Like, seriously, that thing was like, that was an experience. It's the best short I've seen this year, hands down.
Oh, thank
Like,
you, thank you, thank you.
do you know what? I love our culture, yeah. And that Festival of Slaps and your work in general,
Mm,
there's this running theme of like elevating the depiction of our culture.
mm.
It's like art house, but it's us.
Yeah,
And even like some of the small short projects, like I saw like a live music performance on your Vimeo from like years ago, where it
yeah.
was like behind this like translucent screen. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was a photography project I did called Presence back in 2015, might be 2015, 2016 maybe. It feels like 2016, 2017. I can't remember. It was a minute ago. Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. I love
I
that
was like,
project. To be honest, I love that project. It was actually insane. Now looking back at it, it's like, when you look back at your work, you're like, oh, we were really like bold with what we were
yeah,
trying to create,
yeah.
we were
And
really
that
bold.
boldness, it continues.
Mm.
Like, yeah. It's, it's like the stuff that I'm used to seeing in other spaces
Mm.
is now here,
Mm.
and it's not contrived, it's not compromising, it
Yeah.
just fits.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that we could do that.
Yeah. And that's the point really, isn't it? We should already feel that lack of that that lack of like being present in those spaces is wild.
Mhm.
It's wild if you really deep it. It's
Yeah.
like the film industry's been here for how long?
Mhm.
And we haven't really had, like, for me, it's like we haven't had people like our mums depicted, like seen in that way,
Yeah.
like typically you see that in, yeah, and it's starting to obviously break out a lot more, and we're starting to see a lot more of that.
Mhm.
But then in that lies the point, like,
Yeah.
and kind of lies the reasoning behind why I wanted to do something like that, like there lies the reason. It's just that lack of. that lack of I hate using, don't want to use the word representation, but
Yeah.
that lack of being present in that space.
Yes. 100.
Mm,
100. I got you.
mm,
All right. So, because like for me, this is so groundbreaking, and there's a wave that you think on or create from, right? I
mm,
just really want to know, like, from the beginning, and it sounds open ended, so like answer it as you see fit. But
yeah.
where did your creativity start?
Oh, where did it start? I would always say it's probably my parents, you know?
Mm,
Yeah, I would always say my parents, like my mum done pottery. My dad was a sort of illustrator back at like, and I say this, they were never doing it at like such like a huge level.
mm,
It was very much just like for them, it was their sort of passion.
mm,
Like they were doing it for like my dad was probably doing it for like news articles here and there back in like Senegal and stuff like that. And my
mm.
mum was making pottery mainly just for herself as well as friends and stuff like that as well. So they've they've kind of nurtured us in a way where we're a lot more open to the arts than say people traditionally are. You know,
Yeah.
they gave us a lot of freedom, but yeah, I think I've always been yeah, I think it's always like this idea of art and creativity has always kind of been part of my life, like from early, you know, from like
Mm.
so it's yeah, it's I could never ever be able to depict when was the moment I realized oh this is what I like doing.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's just always been a part of me,
Okay.
always has. Um, yeah.
I love that. I love that. And what I also want to know, right, is like what projects did you like growing up? Because yeah, like I was saying, there's like a consistent theme of
Mm,
quality and work in a way that I'm used to seeing in other spaces. So I'm just
yeah.
curious. I like, yeah, like what projects did you like growing up?
Ah, bro, man, like my friends always laugh at me, yeah, because they always kind of say, "Bro, Abdu, everything you love is like, guns, cars, violence, like sci-fi, like all of this sort of stuff." And it's just like that, like being able to escape that sort of escapism of being able to like live in a world for an hour and a half or whatever, or in a TV show. So for me, I'm still huge fan of like cartoons and stuff like that. Like Japanese anime is like one of my like biggest sort of key drivers. Um, Again, I remember my brother playing me. There's like this Japanese anime which is like quite hardcore called Ninja Scroll, and I just remember being like, "What the is this? Like, what?" Like, you're used to watching daytime TV, and you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh my god! Like, there's blood. What the hell? Like, what's going on?" And again, it's dynamic. It's exciting. It's like, and at its core are some real deep stories, you know. And
Okay.
it's very similar to why people probably are obsessed with comics. Like, there's
Mm,
some there's some real deep stories within that, but then told in a sort of an exciting way that you can follow. Um, and then when it came to like when you comes to like film, like my parents didn't have a lot, so we only ever had like a certain number of tapes, like a VCR player with we have a number of tapes, and my auntie um record Sky. We didn't have Sky. We only had like the 3 or 4 channels, and then it
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I remember there being the fifth one coming and being like, oh, "There's another channel. Oh my god, more to see." Do you know what I mean? And then, but my auntie and my friends all had like cable and Sky
Mm,
and stuff like that. So a lot of the time it would be, and I never had a games console or anything like that. That everything came quite late for me and my brother and my other siblings. Like we so for instance, my auntie will record like Cartoon Network and all these sort of films and shows, and I'd literally have to play it on repeat, like rewind the tape, play it on repeat, watch it as if I have those things in it, and then once my parents started buying certain tapes, VHS, no, sort of tapes, it would be like, oh snap! Like suddenly we've got. I remember the first time I got Toy Story. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember that being like a big day for me. Like I remember that being like a massive day, being like, oh my god, I've got something. Like, and
yeah.
then obviously. As me and my brother got older, we started to just then buy our own stuff. So I remember just getting the two films I grew up watching bare well, 3 really, or
Mm,
2 really, is like The Matrix. That completely blew me and my brother's mind. Like, we were
really?
just like, we know that film line by line, like, when people are gonna say something, when they're gonna do something. We'd try and reenact that in our living room. Do you know what I mean? Like, you jump from sofa to sofa trying to do you'd call it The Matrix, like, "Let's do it," and you start doing the madness and all of this. And then I remember seeing that, and I remember, like, and then we got the Fast and the Furious. So like, it might have been Too Fast, Too Furious, maybe. And I remember just running those on repeat consistently. Because that's all like there wasn't nothing else for me to go watch. I'll go to my friend's house and I'll end up like, you always have that one friend or a few friends that have like a games console or Sky, and you're
Yeah.
supposed to be over there playing, but I'm there like just watching, like, oh wait, what else can we watch? What else can we watch? What how many other channels are there? Do you know what I mean? Like, you grow up on that. And then so yeah, man, you like, a lot of the time it was that, like, those two for me were just like mind blowing. It was like, and obviously being like classic boy, like being a classic boy, like cars, fighting,
Yeah.
guns, violence, mad
Yeah.
stunts. You're like, oh my god, this is blowing my mind. And then so for me, like, I would say like the obsession started there, as well as like adverts. Obviously, I'm watching TV trying to
Mm,
catch thing, and then like I'm seeing like the latest Nike commercial come out.
yeah.
It's in the cage, and you got Edgar Davids, you got Ronaldo, you got all these people, you got Thierry Henry, you got all the best players playing football in a mad cinematic way. And you, like, usually you watch football from afar, but this is the first time you're seeing football up close. So you're actually in the game as this how it feels. And obviously playing football when you're younger, like, these people are like your heroes. You're seeing them on the thing and you're trying to mimic what they're doing. And you're trying to mimic the moves they're doing on the adverts. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
cool, I'm gonna bounce the wall, I'm gonna bounce the ball off the wall and do that. Do you know what I mean? So you start, as a kid, you're just taking this all in, but you're also just like, you're taking what someone else has imagined and bringing it into your imagination, and then bringing that to life. So for me, it was like those things there were just like massive to me, like hugely influential, and somehow are always still quite present. And in my mind, somehow hasn't been topped since. So that's
Wow.
like early 90s. So like, that's like 90s, noughties. So you're like talking about like Matrix came out in 1999. After 99, like, well, 1999, like some of the maddest films came out, and it's never been the same since. Like, we haven't been able to kind of like get back to how those films felt, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And The Matrix just changed everything, man. Like, in terms of like
Mm,
story matched with action and
mm,
spectacle. It's like that they bro, they broke film forever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't. And then after that, everyone mimics. Do you know what I mean? There was obviously certain techniques that were still there.
mm-mm.
Like, you're watching. I remember there's like a P Diddy music video in one of the things, and they do the bullet
Is that
time,
No Way Out?
something like that. There's like a bullet
Yeah.
time thing there, and you're seeing that, and they're like, yeah, music videos, like, being, again. I didn't. Obviously, I'm going to like my friend's house, seeing MTV Base, and then seeing how that world is, and I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, all I have is Top of the Pops. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm waiting for like someone sick to come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, for me it was like very much within my sort of the lack of having kind
Yes.
of being the thing that fueled and still fuels a lot of like sort of decisions of like, oh man, I don't see this, or I don't have this, therefore I'm gonna put it in there.
Mm. Man, do you know what? This is making so much, making so much sense now, right? And and it's clear that that passion is still there.
Mm,
Like, even just hearing you talk about these things that we've all grown up with, and they've impacted us and influenced us in different ways, but it sounds like those things gripped you
yeah, a
and
lot.
us and have
Still,
helped. You
bro.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, they're still there.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, man.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, that's where the kind of I would say like this obsession or chasing a certain feeling has always come from. I feel like
Mm,
there's always this sort of feeling I want to invoke in myself, but also want to invoke in others. Um, and just bringing stuff with meaning.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember the old sort of like I remember the sort of old Guinness adverts.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Tip follows top follows tip, like,
Yeah.
and the
That's
swimmer
the surfing one, isn't it?
and the surfing one as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Swimmer, the surfing, and you're like, "Raw," like I look at that now and I'm like, that could have been in itself a film. Do you know what I mean? It's like it was
Mm.
just storytelling at its finest in its most sort of expressive way, you know?
Wow.
Um, so for me as someone that's young that can't quite understand narrative
Yeah.
as well as I do now as an adult,
Yeah.
that's what pulled me in and then pulled me closer to those stories, you know?
Man, I love that. I love that.
Mm.
So, like, looking at your body of work so far, and I know you're still at the early parts of your career, but you've done a lot.
Mm.
I would say. What I want to know, right? Like for everyone as well, like what
Mm.
your trajectory has been. So, like, did you study? Did you go to film school? Like all of this stuff.
No, I never went film school, you know?
Mm.
Like, not in the traditional sense at all. I would say like a lot of my film school has come from experience
Yeah.
of trial and error, observation, and getting advice and discussions, you know?
Mm.
I studied architecture. So like for me, not that for a long time, only probably even just after Serious Things is when I probably considered myself a filmmaker. Before that, it was something that I just wanted to do. I tend to follow those sort of again that feeling of like what do I want to express and how. But I studied architecture and then realized that you know what, like I don't I don't want to spend the next 7 years studying and then by the time I've nearly hit my 30s is when I'm actually starting my career,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
actually in the industry.
Yeah.
Even though you do experience between that and you can kind of claim you can't claim yourself as an architect, but even then, even within architecture, it's then like, all right, you've got this young person. Are you really going to trust them with designing your building that's got to last there for like a good over like plus 30, 50 years? So
Yeah.
then for me, like in architecture, like I think architecture was like a really amazing foundation because you learn a lot about every aspect of design, like every aspect of design thinking, from how your building looks, no, from your concept to your idea to your execution. There's always a through line, and that through line has to reflect in the building you create, in the furniture that you put in there, in the materials that you use, to even how you present, like how you're presenting and you're doing your pictures, that has to reflect in that. So there's this consistent through line, consistent concept that has to flow throughout everything. So for me, I think that built the most perfect foundation creatively. And the first year was really like it was more geared towards sort of like it felt more like an art class, but with design thinking. But then
Ah,
yeah, I got to a point where I was just like, you know what I realized I love doing loads of things. There's not one thing I love doing.
yeah.
And architecture done that. And then but then starting to look at the actual career, actually looking at what it's like down the line.
Yeah.
I always say to people, if you're in an industry and you can't see anyone that you want to be like, um, it's either the industry is not necessarily that the roles are not there's not the role that you want, and therefore you either make your role the thing that you want, or about switching industry and seeing if there's something else that someone that you can see, because if you can see it, you can believe it and you can do it, right? So in architecture, I looked, and again, I probably would probably still go back into architecture at some point,
Yeah.
but for me, it was like I felt like I had during that like first 3 years
Mm.
had almost done a creative disservice to myself, and ever since then, I've been trying to give back to myself, you know. So
Wow.
yeah, it's the journey's been insane. Like so, from doing architecture,
Hmm.
understanding that hold on, what I'm really good at is design thinking,
Yeah.
and therefore like I can kind of go into anything and apply that. So if I'm interested in design, or if I'm interested in branding, or I'm interested in film or art, I can kind of apply that. So I went from like doing architecture, then literally in the summer of that year graduating, making a jewelry collection because I just felt like I want to make something, and then doing a jewelry collection and then creating a film around that and a campaign around that, and then landing myself into sort of advertising where it was like, man, I get to play in this playground, I get to play in that playground, I get to do film and storytelling, I get to do branding, I get to do innovation, I get to do tech, I get to do all of these things that I know and love,
Yeah.
and be able to kind of like pair that together to make something, you know. So yeah, it kind of went from there, and then obviously transitioned from there into film. So
Mm.
yeah, man, it's been an amazing journey, man. It's been an amazing journey. I wouldn't take it back for anything.
I love that. And it's so it's so true and interesting how much you have said design so
Mm,
far, because one of the things that struck me about and we'll talk about festival slaps, but
yeah.
just even the rollout of it is just like the consistency in the design, like the
Mm,
billboards, the actual poster and the
mm,
variations on the poster, and even in the film some of the shots are like so specific. They're on for like half a second.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like you see the hand in the woman's eyeball, you see this the beads of sweat, and it's
Mm,
like a lot of people would have just been like, listen, the budget don't go that far. It's not that deep. We get
yeah,
it. He's been
yeah,
slapped. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But I'm like, wait, you went to those lengths, and I've seen it in some of your other shorts as well.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, this is a thing for you.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I just wanted to commend you and give you your flowers, because that
Nah,
that
thank you.
that attention to detail hasn't gone unnoticed.
Nah, thank you, man. And I have to thank the team as well for like, it's like for putting up with putting up with me and my and that sort of either crazy vision or just like ambition as well. It's not an easy road to take, you know, like when you're trying to when you're trying to really kind of like go all out, you know, it's not easy. And I think film is a is an art of restraint and knowing where to push and where to pull, you know, and where to be still and where to kind of go all out, you know.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, man, nah, the design. I think personally, like everything's design. Like writing is design. Um, like music. I had a debate with one of my producers about I wouldn't name on what project. It wasn't this project, but on another project where we was trying to work with a composer, and I was like, like music is design, and she's like, no, it's not. Like you have to wait, and I'm like, no, like you start off with a concept, you do some research and development, you land on an idea, then you go do an execution. You do some research and development in there, you land on the execution, and then it's iteration until you land on something that like gives a function. There's a function to the art. Do you know what I mean? Everything we're doing is a function to it. So it has to serve something, be it giving you a feeling or be it giving conveying an emotion or a certain plot point. Everything in the way is kind of like design thinking. It's whether you want to see it that way and whether you understand it that way. And so yeah, so everything for me is like art and design are very separate. Um and because art you're doing it to express something. Design is taking that expression and giving it function. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's about pairing those two a lot of the time, you know?
yeah. Oh wow. All right. So serious things like that. That's a classic. It's widely regarded. Featured at London Film Festival, Rain Dance, Biffa nominated, winning at the Shinies. Featured at Tate. I remember I was at Somerset House like a year or two ago, just randomly, and I was waiting in a lobby for someone, and
Mm.
yeah, it was just playing on the wall.
That's mad. I only found out I think I got an email about that. Like the places that that's gone to is yeah, we always say that, especially with the people I worked with, we're just like,
Mm.
it's the gift that keeps on giving. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's weirdly that project that like honestly is like, and we always discuss this because it's like how, and I'm just like, to be honest, I think it's because it just came from a pure place. You know, like we made something for ourselves. So, for instance, where it goes
Mm,
is exciting, but I think for me, the main thing is the fact that I made that with like people that are cool friends and people that are now cool friends. Do you know what I mean? We made that. That was a real sort of like offering from us as a community, like people that I went to school with, that people that I went to uni with, to people that I now work with. Like it was a real sort of like, yeah, it was a real coming together of like
mm,
all of us, And I think it just came from such a pure place that I don't know whether other people see that in the work, or whether it just, I don't know, created this sort of energy around it that you felt
mm,
like, yo, like we're not being preachy here. We're just kind of like expanding on an observation,
mm,
And so yeah, so for me, yeah, serious things, man. It's like, yeah, that's and even and sometimes when I'm even lost in a project, I have to revisit what it was for me that I felt on certain things in that, like certain shots or certain stuff that I'm just like, what made me feel, what was it I was looking for in this moment, And just kind of reconnecting to that.
man. Do you know what? Yeah, yeah, yeah. As you're speaking, so many things make so much sense, right? Because
Mm,
I was watching it the other day, and I was like, there was a bit, I guess. So with me, right?
mm.
I don't cry a lot at stuff, but like I'll cry inside in terms like I'll feel like, oh my days, that is deep. And there was a bit, it's that part where they start smiling, right?
Yeah.
And then they stop smiling.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, I'm just thinking about it now. Nah,
Yeah.
it's deep. It's deep.
It's mad. It's mad. When you watch it, do you feel a part of you is seen?
Yeah, but I feel like so there's two things, right?
Mm,
100% do. Like Thea Gaich does this excellently in her work as well, right? I
mm,
feel like you and her capture, like, take our culture and community
mm.
and capture it in a way that takes me back. This is me personally, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
just takes me back to a place. And
Mm,
I think that's probably why I resonated with it. But I think one of the overriding feelings that
mm,
I had from it was like this, like, I don't know if the word is disappointment,
mm.
but it was really like, man, like, no, this is the feeling.
Yeah.
That's such a shame.
Mm.
That's such a shame because like,
Because just to say that, like, because I think when it's interesting because with and big up fear as well, like because another fellows, I think there's something in the water in South London. Like I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I think there's something in the water with us creatives from South
mm,
London because it's
mm,
like everyone's just storming the gates and just literally just like we're here to stay sort of vibe. Like everyone's
yeah,
just like, yo, we ain't leaving. I think for me with serious things, what's really interesting, I think what we try to capture is like how as boys we really try to grow up we really try to grow up at a very early age. And it's interesting because the film, a lot of people talk about the film, and sometimes the people are like, "Oh yeah, black masculinity," and I'm just like, "No, it's just masculinity in general. It's just
mm,
it's
mm,
it's interesting. Like there's a lot of, and I remember this one guy I was working with. He just said, "Yeah, man, it's a shame how we have to grow. Like it's a shame that as kids we have to almost try to grow up too quickly, um, and it's a shame that like the stuff that within that sort of mentality of sort of masculinity that we end up later on trying to chase our youth. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it was all because, and for me, it's just like all because of what? Like, because of it wanting to be accepted, or yeah, wanting to be accepted, or whether it was trying to protect ourselves from, um, because of the way the world is, it hardens it hardens us specifically from our community, that we have to almost put on a brave face every time we walk out the door. You know, we
Hmm.
have to, yeah, we have to take on a lot, and therefore that is almost like a first, like how we like how we come across is basically our sort of first line of defense. Do you know what I mean? So it's like not feeling like you can be being a man is like not feeling like you can be vulnerable, not
Hmm.
feeling like that this is me showing a sign of strength. But I'm
Yeah.
huge on like habits. Like all my work kind of like expresses like a habit and a contradiction, the habits and contradictions in life. And for me, it was like it's ironic. I love how I kind of pick an idea is based on the irony a lot of the time. And I was like,
Mm.
it's quite ironic that as men we feel like a sign of, by showing emotion is a sign of weakness, um, but actually, really and truly, not being able to show emotion is a weakness. Do you know what I mean? That is actually the true weakness, really. So I just find it there's an irony there, you know.
Yeah. 100. Oh man, I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, so with Festival of Slaps now, right?
Mm,
Um, I want to understand like your design process. So you like beautifully broke down like, look, I take a concept, I do this, I do
mm,
this, I do that. I want to know what your process was for like Festival of Slaps because it's so specific,
yeah.
but you've made it universally understandable. And do you know what? It's funny, right? I was actually watching it with my aunt.
Mm.
So I was like, look, you have to see this, you have to see this. So I was watching it and she was laughing, loved it, amazing. And then she asked me a question, right? She said, do you think like like white people would understand that and would see it with the same comedy?
Yeah.
And I said, do you know what? I feel like they would because the way it's been done, like there's a universal theme of discipline, but just the story itself,
Mm.
you get it, like you understand why it's done, and you're not confusing it with
Yeah.
abuse,
Yeah.
even if you don't decide to beat your kids. In the same way that with Goodfellas, we're not Italian, but we understand family
Yeah.
units and
Yeah.
that stuff.
A yeah, a lot of my work is always about holding up a mirror, right? And it's like there's always a perception versus a reality thing. And I always find it interesting. So I almost like I love doing these sort of things that like I think, in especially in festival slaps. I'll go into the process in a second, but for me, it's like we use the stereotype to demystify it. For me, like
Mm,
because it's bullshit. Like how
mm,
people perceive black mothers, black women,
mhm,
us. It's all bullshit. And so for me, it's like I'm going to show you yourself, and then I'm gonna show you how you think, and then I'm gonna leave you with that. So it's like, for instance, in serious things, we start off with mayhem and you're just assuming the worst. And then you then realize, oh wait, hold on, this is just about masculinity. This is about these boys. And now I'm gonna show you them. I'm really gonna show you who that there's boys behind these sort of cold stares, you know. Festival Slaps, it was the same thing. For me, it was like I wanted to be able to like for instance, it's very like my mum is very much misunderstood a lot of the time. But then if you really know my mum, it's like she's the most loving, caring person, and it's like whoever gets to know my mum loves her. Like she's like one of those sort of people that like even if I've bumped into people that know my mum and they're like, oh my god, your mum, da, 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 da," and it's like pure joy comes from that, right?
mm,
Now, for me, it was like taking and when I say semi autobiographic, what I mean by that is like at one point I was choking. I was eating food. I was choking. I eat fast. I eat exceptionally fast, and I think it's because I always wanted to make sure I ate my dinner and then watch what was on TV. Do you know what I mean? So me and my family are all kind of like that. We all eat really fast. But my mum always used to say like, "Yo, all you do is cut, swallow, chew your food. And then me being young and thinking that I know better, I'm just like, "Ah, what do you know?" And then the inevitable happens. I choke. And then the thing that you would either run away from for your mom disciplining you or whatever was the one thing that saved my life. So it was just like, now looking at it when I'm older, I'm like, oh, there's an irony there. There's such an irony there, because this is the perception. These are the sort of habits and contradictions as us and as Western society, how we look upon our culture and the people from our culture, So it's like, how can I take those things and create a narrative that takes that stereotype, demystifies it, and leaves you really seeing this family, this culture in its true light. So for me, it's like, yeah, you're faced with the stereotype to begin with.
Mm.
Then it's gone. And then the tone changes. Like, then you suddenly realize all the other times that you thought she was gonna slap him or beat him, he was met with nothing. He was met with everything else but that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and what she was doing, and what we confuse with like passion and love, is like that this mum goes so far to prevent her son falling from grace, but
Mm.
all the son wants to do is grow up and leave that. So what you have is like an immovable object being a mother's love or a parent's love, and an unstoppable force, which is youth going into adolescence. And it's like the film is that clash between those two things, which we can all understand. When we're younger, all we want to do is grow up, and all our parents want us to do is stay young and
Yeah.
be their kids. So it's like, yeah, it's just funny how certain audience perceive it, like audiences and people from um, different backgrounds that are not, say, per se European,
Yeah.
or see it, and they see the, like, especially when the twist happens, they see the love, the joy, they see themselves, they see how their family are. Like, it's very rare that you see like a black family sit in a five-star restaurant cracking joke.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, cracking joke with one another, teasing each other. The parents teasing the kid teasing the parent. You rarely ever see that. So for me, it was all about leading to that point. Um, but to touch on the sort of process, for
Mm.
me, it's like I was saying, I find the concept and irony um, something that I find interesting, something that I feel like I I want to be, I want to say or be said. So I
Mhm.
kind of thought of a concept there, and then I move on to like an idea, and the idea being kind of like what the story is, the characters, everything like that, and how those things flow throughout.
Mm.
Um, and then from that point on, it's words on the page.
Mm.
I try to not jump into visuals. I started with words on the page first, got that right. Um, then as you're writing, you're thinking of visuals anyway when you're writing. So the visual part for me is like the easiest bit. It's the easiest bit. It's the bit I spend time on, but I don't. It's not the thing that I'm worried about. It's making sure that the idea, the core of the story, is as solid as it can be, because that's the thing I'm going to use to inform everything else. So because I have that sort of idea, I'm then looking at like, okay, cool, this concept or idea, how does that flow throughout everything? So if I'm like, okay, cool, I want to lean into the stereotype and then demystify it, that means I'm misleading this audience. So everything has to be something that misleads the audience. So if the posters, for instance, we talk about the posters feel like almost like a horror. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the storytelling starts from the first instance that someone sees the film. And the way the person sees the film might be the poster. It might be the title. It might be the log line. Do you know what I mean? From that very moment, that's where the story starts. And then where it ends is where you see it in the world, or how you then think. So like, you have the film, which I see as being like the middle core chunk of it. And it's like, how do I lead people into that? And then how do I take them out? And how does that story continue? So for me, it's like every stage it has to fit that. If it doesn't fit that, then it's not worth really pursuing or doing. So the film does that, and then when it comes to like the trailers or the cut downs, they do that, and then posters, everything, like language that you use. is informed by that. So I would say that's me being an architect of my own project, ironically. But like it has to, everything has to make sense and ladder up. If not, you find yourself kind of lost a lot of the time. It's like it's about returning back to the essence of what you wanted to communicate in this film.
Do you know what? Thank you so much for that branding masterclass. What that was, yeah, that it just makes so much sense. It makes so much sense now because one of the things I was going to ask you was about that horror feel because
Mm,
there's three specific places that you see it, right, before you even watch the film and during, right?
yeah,
The poster, which you touched on, the music, like the score is
yeah,
spot on, like in a on a different level. And I saw Raheem Bakari was part of that. He's a genius as well.
yeah,
Mm. And then also that wind effect,
mm,
like those three things scream horror at me.
mm,
And the way you've used them, just breaking down like your whole concept and ideation process, I'm like, it makes sense. Because
yeah,
how often do you see like a great piece of work and the campaign is a few trailer posts on Insta and then the film's out and it's like, oh, there's so much more you can actually do if you think about it.
yeah. No, 100%. That's why I kind of say like for me, my sort of goal is always how does the film go beyond the screen? How does the film continue? Like, what other places can the film live on? Like, you spend in film, we spend like we have we're one of the one of the few industries that we have like a massive amount of manpower for a short period of time, like 2 or 3 days. Bang! So much money is spent on making this one thing that lasts 10, 20 minutes, or even like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then more often than not, the film is put out, and then because by that time the creator is tired, they've seen the film a million times, and then it's like, let's just get this out. I want to move on to the next thing. Whereas for me, I'm just like, what a shame for all the people, for yourself as well as your past self that first came up with the idea, and your past self that went through the hell and fire to get it to this point, as well as for the team that put in countless amount of hours for it to just be a simple sort of post. Like I think us, I think I think a lot of the great stories go beyond the screen. When I talk about the Matrix,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I say it goes beyond the screen is because it became a way of thinking about society, where our place in society. Um, it became a visual style that everyone mimicked. It became this sort of thing, like it became a culture. It became fashion. Like during that time, leather coats and all the man, it was just sick. Do you know what I
And
mean?
the
It's like
Nokia phone, the 7110, yeah.
everything. And to this day, a lot of what has happened in the Matrix is pretty much kind of what our reality is now. Like for me, that is a perfect example of a film and a story going beyond the screen, because that's what stories are. Stories should be able to live here, there, and everywhere. A great example of that. It's like Serious Things for me kind of taught me that as well. It was like it was a story that went beyond the screen. It
Mm-hmm.
we we taught it in schools. We had like discussions in schools. It became a subject matter in the school. We played it on national prison radio to 90,000 prisoners, and that wasn't even the visuals. That's just the audio. They literally took the audio and played that in prison, and we were just like, oh, I didn't even think it could be that. Like, do you know what I mean? I didn't even think it could be that. Um, it
Wow.
plays in in galleries. So the last place that I found that I got hit up for it was that it played at the National Gallery in DC, and I went on Google Maps, went to go look at where this place was, and the White House is like right next to there. So I'm just like to the mandem, I'm like, yo, can you believe your face is up on the screen and next to the White House? Like, isn't that mad to you? Isn't that crazy that like how far like a simple idea or story can go when it's created from a pure place, like so for me it's like that's where my branding mind and everything else and like my creative mind is
Mm.
exciting because it means that I can continue to create. It doesn't mean that the film is the end product. There's other places it could live, and you will see later on with festival slaps in the sort of coming weeks, you'll see how we've got something else that we're gonna drop, which kind of like exemplifies that, you know. So yeah,
I love, man. Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love that. So like short films aside, you've been doing TV as well.
yeah,
So yeah, let's not forget that. Including like Gangs of London and also
yeah,
Grime Kids.
yeah.
Like Grime Kids in particular, because I know like you specifically directed an
Yeah.
episode of that, which is huge, right?
Mm,
Especially for that period of time in our culture.
mm.
What can we expect from the show?
Ah, man, it's expectation. I think it's very much like a love letter to that time and to us and who we were back then, you know.
Mm,
Um, I think expect two things. Like I always say, like when I first like came on the project, I was like, what are the two things I want people to take away from this? I want
yeah.
the people that lived it to be like, fuck me, I can't be like, fuck me, I was there for that. And then for people that didn't live it to be like, fuck me, I wish I was there for that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Mm,
really, because it was a magical time, like, and people forget that people forget that, okay, cool, there's only one Stormzy, there's only one Skepta, there's only one Wiley, one Dizzy Rascal, um, and those icons have their own right to tell their own story in the way they wanted to tell
mm,
it, stuff like that. But I always was interested in it because it was about the many, not the few, really. Like I think what was really interesting about it was about the people that surrounded those people, you know, the people that kept the
yeah.
culture, the other people that kept the culture alive, be it the kids that were bootlegging tapes and recording it off of radio, selling it to their friends, um, to the people, the unnamed pirate radio stations that came and went, the people that
Yeah.
canonized it through the photography that they took, um, and these are people that were just living it, not people that have made, say per se, careers off of it. It's the culture that I think it was the culture that kept the genre alive in those moments helped and helped keep it alive. You know, I think for me, that's what makes the show special. Is that like
Mm,
for me personally, I was able to canonize my childhood, similar to the fact that with Festival Slaps, I'm able to canonize my my family life, my parents.
yeah.
Um, Similar to the serious things, I'm able to canonize my sort of young to adolescence. You know, like um, so for me, that's I think that those sort of the sort of takeouts, like be prepared to like laugh, to cry, be prepared to like bounce off your seat and feel seen, you
Mm,
know, like and expect to see um that time period told in all its glory, you know, that it deserves to be.
man. Well, we're looking forward to it. And congratulations for
Thank you.
you know, all of the success being featured at, London Film Festival with two projects actually. Yeah, wow.
They literally screened like the date back to back. So it was like I think it was Friday we screened Grime Kids one episode 1 to 2, and the
Oh,
next day we screened Festival Slaps. So it was like it's been a great. That's what I'm saying. It's been a busy. That's why I'm tired because it's like
yeah,
you're balancing. You're kind of like in the middle of balancing the two
yeah,
versions of yourself, like
yep,
the sort of director for hire that's come on a TV show, and then
yeah.
sort of writer director side of you that is the creative, the person that has his own ideas and his own ways of like expressing himself, and it's like showing how I apply that to other people's projects and work well with others. And then being like,
Mm,
how do I function as the lead of my own sort of thing? You know, my like not having anyone to kind of like fall back on. It's like, oh no, this is the vision that I've come up with, and now I have to stand by it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And not, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's an exciting time. It was really good. It was really good, and they literally like it's the same month as my birthday. It was like
Oh.
everything this last month has just been amazing, man. It's been amazing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. God bless you, man. Well, listen, this has been an amazing episode. I've learnt, I have, yeah, understood a lot more about design. And yeah, got to really just, celebrate and understand you, which I think is so key for so many like creatives, like your peers and also the generation coming up next, because you've really you've I believe you have opened a door that we didn't realize was staring us in the face if
Thank you, man.
we just really look, like,
Mm,
actually want to go through it. Do you know what
yeah. No,
so
100%, man. It's about if you're doing storytelling to take control of, like for me, if it's, oh, sorry, my phone's ringing.
all good, all good.
If you're doing a if you come into filmmaking to tell a story, then really take control of that narrative. Like the storytelling doesn't end on the page. It doesn't end within the film. It's about how do you want people to see the project, perceive the project. Like we perceive art as art once it's hung on the wall and in a gallery.
Mm,
It's about seeing like, and the story starts from when you enter the gallery, and then the art piece is the core foundation of that. So it's about seeing your work in a similar way, your stories in a similar way, and making sure that like, yeah, man, that you enjoy every aspect of filmmaking. Because filmmaking isn't just making the film, you
mm,
know.
mm,
There's a lot to play with and a lot to have fun with, and it's just about how far do you want to push it? How much fun do you want to have? You know, how much does your project? Do you feel like your project deserves? Think about really thinking about that.
wow. I hope everyone took notes, because this is something you're gonna have to come back to, I think, when you're doing ideation for your next project. Abdu, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, man.